My name is Hayley. I am 32 years old. I'm currently an IFBB Pro Women's Physique bodybuilder. I got my pro card last year at North Americans. When I'm not bodybuilding or training in the gym, I work as a nurse practitioner. Full time, I also work as an online health and wellness coach. Have also worked as a travel ICU nurse as well. So in my spare time, I love music. I love cooking with my husband. I've got two cats, a dog.
Just got the
That's
whole thing
me.
going.
That's me.
Yeah, so it seems like you obviously have a lot going on. How do you kind of manage all that?
Ever since I was young, like even when I was a kid, I was always in stuff. I was in team sports. I competed. I was in horseback riding and did that competitively. Marching band, indoor drum line, you name it, like lacrosse, cross country. So I was always busy doing stuff at an early age. And so I think that just kind of, continued on into my 20s and now my 30s. And I just always like to be doing stuff.
And when did
Yeah.
you get into the world of fitness?
Yeah, I was always active. I played sports all through middle school and high school, mainly lacrosse and cross country. Those were like my main sports. Um, and then when I got into college, I didn't play sports, but I kept running. So I got into marathon running for a while and did that for a few years. I qualified for the Boston Marathon.
Congrats.
Um, Thank you. It got to a point where I was just getting so many running injuries, like shin splints, plantar fasciitis. My knees were aching all the time. I just felt, all that pounding, constant pounding, and I always ran outside too, like on pavement,
Yeah.
which is even worse. So I just I kind of slowly started morphing into more like cross training and weightlifting. I knew a little bit about weightlifting from high school because I also so I played lacrosse in the springtime, but then like fall winter time, I didn't really have a sport. So what I would do was I trained with the boys lacrosse team. They did like indoor training, and that's where I first learned. Like their coach was the first one to teach me how to squat, taught me how to bench press. I learned like some basics of lifting and things like that. So that kind of carried me through, and then like I said, fast forward, I was running and then transitioned more to weightlifting because of all these injuries. And then lo and behold, I kind of started liking weight training a little bit more. I started seeing like some changes in my body, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. Um, and and that's how we got into it. Then through, that's kind of when social media was still, starting to get big. I first competed in like 2014. So I think 2013 was when I was like toying with the idea of competing. So I started seeing, people like Dana Lynn Bailey on social media, and I was like, wow, those women are beautiful. Like I'd never really seen like women with muscle and being feminine and beautiful and that kind of stuff. And so I really liked that. And I've always been a competitive person. I've always liked to challenge myself. So I came across, bodybuilding and competing, and I thought that might be something that I think I could do. I like the challenge, and the rest is history.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break here just for a second. Let me tell you about Smoking Gun Coffee. They're a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to produce a quality coffee at an affordable price. They only buy coffee from small coffee farmers around the world with a cup score of at least 85. Each batch is roasted to order for maximum freshness. They also donate a large portion of their proceeds to organizations that help local communities, veterans, first responders, or you can donate to the foundation of your choice at the checkout by going to www.smokingguncoffee.com. That's SMOKIN Gun Coffee. When it comes to science-backed supplements that taste great, 2NS is your one-stop shop. They truly maximize quality by making their own supplements in-house. With over a combined 90 years of experience, 2NS's team of industry experts has a commitment to research, quality, development, and innovation. The body is sacred, so give it the best. Check out all 2NS has to offer at secondnaturesupplements.com. That's 2ndnaturesupplements.com.
So I don't consider myself a runner, or even though I have completed a marathon runner really, or something I did to do it.
Yeah.
I do have the experience to understand like how brutal it can be. You kind of mentioned like the physicality of it on your body day in and day out. At least kind of like in bodybuilding, you can train one portion of the body at a time, and it's not
Yes.
the same thing taking a beating all the time. But
Yep.
how would you kind of compare those two as far as like the challenges and some of the things that you went through?
I will say the training, while it was obviously different, very different training for a marathon versus, your typical bodybuilding training, but just the fact of, I had to get on a training schedule, some sort of training regimen, I was working towards something, towards a certain, performance goal. So they were similar in that sense. But beyond that, they're they're pretty much completely different. Because I honestly, as hard as running and doing marathons and everything was, like, when you're done running, you're done running. But bodybuilding, it's a 24-hour, 7-day a week sport, because it's not just what you do in the gym, it's what you put in your mouth, and it's, your sleep and your recovery and how you're managing stress, and it's literally everything. So I think I learned a lot from my marathon running training, but the bodybuilding has, I think, brought even broader understanding of just holistic wellness. I think, in terms of like taking care of your whole mind, body, spirit, everything.
Yeah. And it is true that like bodybuilding, it is so holistic in that way, but it's also like, you could apply those same principles to almost anything, any sport,
Hmm.
any, business, whatever. And
Yep.
it just makes me wonder like why. And at the top, I'm sure athletes do, but like it just makes me wonder what the motivation behind, the like, let's just say call it the average bodybuilder. Maybe not the
Mhm.
first time somebody does a show, but maybe second, third time, whatever. They have their foot in it a little bit, but they're not a pro or anything. They still work in some cases just as hard as the people who are at the top of the sport,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, it shows. Like it literally shows every single thing that you do.
Yeah.
But in other sports, it's like it's not necessarily to the same extent or to the same degree.
Right.
Like if you're a
Right.
pro basketball player, you're going to have all these different ways of training, all these different things that you do, compared to
Hmm.
maybe a high school player who is just kind of you're working hard, but you're not doing the same thing. But it seems in
Right.
bodybuilding, everybody's doing this pretty much the same things.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got to think too, with bodybuilding, like sports like that, like soccer, football, basketball, things like that. It's pretty much, it is strictly performance based, so you can, those athletes can eat and train just simply for performance, but bodybuilders, we're eating for performance and the look. So we gotta kind of balance both, and if one is kind of sacrificing the other, or vice versa, you got to make changes. And so that's where it's bodybuilding is definitely, I think, more not just a science, but also very much an art too.
Where did you find, because a lot of people nowadays, they find a lot of information on social media. Where did you find a lot of
Yeah.
the information that you took into the sport?
I can't even remember like specific person, or say, like I said, Dana Lynn Bailey was huge for me. She was definitely one of the first, bigger females with muscle, that, bodybuilding females that I followed, and everything. So I would say she was probably the first that really kind of lit the fire in me. There's so much out there with YouTube and everything. I know John Meadows. I mean, he's got so much informational videos, out there for people. And I always will tell people, if they're looking to, you know, educate themselves or learn how to train, just look up YouTube videos.
Yeah.
You can learn so much.
Yeah. And as as the world of bodybuilding and social media became, both of those kind of grew at the same time a little bit. Did you ever struggle? Like, you might have seen these things at the beginning, but then as more people got on and more people started sharing information, did you ever think, oh, if I did it like this, then, just with so much more information, did you ever struggle with like the over information of it?
Oh, yes. I would say probably like the first 2 to 3 years I was competing as an amateur. I definitely fell into that rabbit hole where it's definitely possible to have too many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to bodybuilding. And the thing is, like, there's more than one way to get lean and do what we do, right? So the most important thing that I tell people is if you have a coach, trust your coach, communicate with them, and follow their plan. Because the more you start to change things or add things that other people are telling you, that's just going to muddy the waters, for one thing. And two, that's you're not giving your coach the right information, because then they think that you're following their plan, but in reality, you're not. And it's just it's not going to be a good outcome. So, I think I think that is very easy for competitors to do. You're right. It's because there is so much information out there, but that's the tough thing about fitness, because not all the information is good. And you kind of have to navigate through, for lack of a better term, the BS and the real stuff. And especially for people who are newer, who don't really know that much, or just trying to get their feet wet, it can be really, really tough for them.
Ready to take your supplements to the next level? 2NS is here to help. 2NS strives to help you attain the highest degree of health and performance. Combining cutting-edge science and the best from nature, 2NS gives fitness enthusiasts and athletes the fuel they need. Check them out at secondnaturesupplements.com. That's 2ndnaturesupplements.com. This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout. This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. For the rest of the year, MYB is donating a percentage of every order to the Special Olympics of Kentucky. Save 20% off your first order with the link below or use code TWR20. Online at mybapparel.com.
Yeah, especially because I think now with the influencer world kind of coming together with the bodybuilding world, a lot of stuff isn't even necessarily meant to be informational. People just follow people and they see that's what they're doing. It's not that they're saying, hey, you can do this too and look like this, but it's just like they want to be like that, so they do what
Right.
they're doing, even if it's
Right.
not meant to be like, this is what you should be doing.
Exactly.
How long did it take for you to hire a coach?
I had a coach since the day I started. I
Gotcha.
always knew. And I mean, even now I'm at the point where I coach people myself. And I do feel like I have the knowledge to coach people. I still would not coach myself, especially when you're in prep. I for one, just like having someone tell me what to do and just, be just doing it. But also you play so many mind games with yourself when you're in prep, especially when you get real lean, and you're just, yeah, I think it's really, really crucial for bodybuilders to have at least a second, 1 second set of eyes to look at them, and kind of be the word of reason for them, because you don't always think, rationally when you're in prep and you're hungry and tired and all those things. It's so easy to rationalize things and, you know, give yourself extra food when maybe you don't really need that extra food, or you're just feeling hungry that day and want the refeed. So I just prefer to have my coach do that, tell me tell me what to do. And honestly, my current coach has been amazing, and I couldn't imagine doing it myself. So I'm so
So
thankful for.
what do you feel like you've improved on as far as like, whether it be in the training, whether it be in the diet, whether it be in the recovery aspect, just along your journey?
Oh gosh. I mean, honestly, I would say a little bit of everything. I know that's kind of a cop out of an answer, but I know especially after last year, my goal last year was to get my pro card, and I did. Um, and that was awesome and everything, but I knew like the second I stepped off that stage with my pro card, like, okay, I'm back to being a little fish in a big pond. And this is I'm gonna I just I've always had high expectations for myself, but I just knew going into this year, um, that I was going to have to change a lot of things, because this is the pro level now, and these girls at the pro level are no joke. I mean, even at the national level, these competitors are no joke. But so at the pro level, everyone is good. Everyone is working their butt off, so you can't skimp on anything. So I think I really tried. This last off season was by far the best off season I've ever had, for a number of reasons. I mean, the diet I was more on point with. Um, the training was more intense. My recovery was better. I put more effort in my recovery. I get regular, deep tissue massages. My massage therapist is incredible. I get more body work. I work with the chiropractor. I do all the body work things now. Stretching, foam rolling, all that stuff. That, to be honest, up until like a year and a half ago, I neglected all of that. And I just think, especially, going from amateur to pro level, it's a whole nother world. So
Yeah.
I knew I had to change a lot of things.
What opened your eyes to doing those things versus not doing them? Was it like a coach? Was it research? What was it?
A little bit of both, just my own knowledge, obviously knowing the importance of rest and recovery, mixed with my coach, telling me, make sure you're doing these things and to keep it on your body work. And he's always good about, you know, keeping on me when I need that. And and then once I started doing it, then I actually felt the difference. In the gym, I feel like I can actually feel like I'm performing better. I feel the movements better. I feel my muscles better. So then I actually started like reaping the benefits from it. So I'm like, okay, this is actually working, and that kind of motivated me more to stay on it.
How do you feel like being in a tougher place, how does that kind of push you?
It definitely pushes me to work harder, push myself past my own limits. Just knowing the competition that's out there. I think I wasn't always this way, but I think over time through my bodybuilding career, I've been able to, take the take the challenge and, turn it into fuel, for my own fire to work harder, to work on a better version of myself, if that makes sense. I think it's taken me some time to get there, because I think with social media in general right now, it's we all just compare ourselves to everyone else. And it's even worse in bodybuilding, obviously, because it's a competitive sport, so it's even more natural for us to compare ourselves to other competitors. And I think there's some competitors that do that, and it swallows them up. And I think they maybe get so overwhelmed that they let it defeat them. And there's other bodybuilders, the ones that I think are probably more successful, are able to take that and, like I said, turn that fuel into fire, and just say, okay, this person may have, this on me, but at the same time, they're not me, I'm not them, and they have a different journey than I have. But I'll take this motivation knowing that they have something better than me, and I'm going to go, work a little bit harder on, my back, or I'm going to, push myself and maybe train glutes twice a week this week, or, you know what I mean? Like, turn it into something that betters yourself rather than just, focusing on the fact that someone's better than you, or you're not good enough and you don't have this and this, because that's getting you nowhere. And trust me, I have been down that road. So like I said, it's taken me time to get to this point, and I still have my moments where, I got to turn off social media because I'll check myself. I'll be looking at other pros and getting those thoughts. And usually what I'll do is I'll just shut it off and put my phone down for a little bit, take a little break. Because we're all human, we all have insecurities and stuff. We have to, delve deeper and understand that, we're all unique and we're all here for a reason.
This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. For the rest of the year, MYB is donating a percentage of every order to the Special Olympics of Kentucky. Save 20% off your first order with the link below or use code TWR20 online at mybapparel.com.
So when it comes to, the sport of bodybuilding, obviously there's a lot of stereotypes, and some of those being negative with health and with the things that can occur. Does that ever, whenever you started, did that ever kind of cross your mind, or do you ever think about it? Like, as much as this is something I love, and as much as it's something that I can succeed in, at what cost is it coming potentially?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I always think about. I think as a bodybuilder, you'd be naive and ignorant not to think about it. So what I do, and especially coming from like a healthcare provider perspective, I at least, I try to be cognizant of, obviously, the sport of bodybuilding and the health detriments that can come from it. But at the same time, I think I do a pretty good job of trying to mitigate as much risk as possible. And that's by taking care of my body, by getting regular blood work. I think that's huge for bodybuilders. And it's something that's so easy. But it's also so easy to just not get done, because for so many bodybuilders, it's just out of sight, out of mind, So you're right. At the end of the day, bodybuilding is not the healthiest sport, but I think making sure that you do, checking all your boxes, making sure you're mitigating as much risk as possible, getting frequent health checks, frequent lab work done, resting, I think is a huge one. I think especially there's a lot of competitors that they compete or diet year round, or pretty darn close to it. And aside from, the drug aspect of bodybuilding, one thing that I think is really, really detrimental to bodybuilders' health is the ones that are constantly in this deficit, caloric deficit, in this diet mode. And that is what I think really, really depletes your body and can cause a lot of negative effects too. So that's one thing that my husband and I think we do a good job of. We usually only compete, once a year. And then after that, we usually take about a year off, if not more. So that's something that I think is super, super important. So important. And I always think about it.
What do you look for when it comes to blood work?
Usually for the typical person, I'll ask for a CBC, which is a complete blood count, a CMP, which is a comprehensive metabolic panel. And then from there, I'll probably get like a thyroid panel, like TSH, free T4, maybe reverse T3. And then other than that, depending on the person, if they're complaining of like maybe some hormonal type symptoms where I think maybe, their hormones may be out of whack, or if the person is already taking, exogenous hormones, then yeah, I'll go ahead and get a hormone panel on them too. Those are the basic ones. A lot of times I'll throw in like a B12, folate, vitamin D, just because deficiencies in those are really, really common. But those are usually what I'll start with. Those give you, your basic snapshot of any person. It can show you, the comprehensive metabolic panel shows you your kidney function, your liver function. Your complete blood count shows you like your blood counts, your blood levels, hemoglobin, hematocrit, things like that, white blood cell count. So I think those are the basics. And then from there, if you can kind of go further down the rabbit hole if you need to, or if, you don't really get all the answers from there, or if you see something on that lab work that kind of clues you in to kind of dig a little deeper, then you can. But those are like the basics that I usually get for most people, especially with, your kidney and your liver. Your liver enzymes could be elevated for who knows how long. You will have no idea. And obviously, especially these bodybuilders that are taking a lot of PEDs, they're very, very hard on the liver, very hard on the kidneys. So, and a lot of times you can see that, like you said, just by checking blood work before things get too far down the road, and you're starting to get negative and possibly even permanent, health problems from it.
It'd be interesting to know, and there's probably information out there. I'm just not aware of it. Like for people who, don't take their health as serious as they need to in this sport, go a little bit too far in things like what, and I don't want to say like even the extreme outliers, the people who, unfortunately may die due to the sport, at an early age, but maybe people who participate in the sport for a while and then get out of it and are fine. And, later on down the road, 70, 80 years old, it would be interesting to know like what that person looks like what issues, maybe what certain cancers or what certain whatevers would that person, develop down the line because they didn't. And like I said, not talking about the extreme, cases that could happen and cause instant issues, but just down the line.
Right. And that's the tough thing too, obviously, with bodybuilding and using, clinical research, because a lot of this research is done on like your average person, not your bodybuilder who's, has super low body fat, high muscle mass, so a lot of things, a lot of these studies you kind of have to take with like a grain of salt, at least when you're incorporating them in bodybuilding terms. Um, but yeah, for the most part, I think in general, even I'm not just bodybuilders, but anyone, just getting your lab work done, or health checks once a year, you know, just to make sure you're checking everything and everything's doing okay. It's just it's so easy to let it go. Hopefully, with bodybuilding becoming a little bit more well known and a slightly more mainstream now, I think people are starting to see a little bit more of the benefits. But yeah, that's always been one thing that bothered me, is just, so many people that aren't in the bodybuilding world, you're right, they just think about the stereotypes and the negatives, and there's so much positive that comes from it. Yes, there are negatives, but I know there's way, way more positives, at least for me and a lot of people, than there are negatives. So I'm glad that at least more of the positive is hopefully coming to light.
Yeah. It's like anything, you can do anything right. You can do anything wrong. You can take anything to the extreme, but it's a matter of how individuals do it. And, I would say most of the people, or if not all the people, I don't know exactly what they're doing, but that I've talked to on this podcast, they're doing it the right way. And they're caring about what is going to happen after the sport, because, that's the truth is you're going to have more time after than you're going to have in it, hopefully.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a lot of bodybuilders that get so caught up in, the now, and what can I do now to get me faster to where I want to be a year from now, and, barring all, health detriments, and they don't care. They'll just do anything. And it's not the smart way to do it. That's certainly not the safest way to do it either.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad. I appreciate that you recognize that in me and other people you bring on.
So to kind of wrap things up, what advice would you have for someone who wants to be successful in the sport of bodybuilding?
I would say be patient for one, be disciplined, and always remember your why. I think those are the three most important things. And actually, I'm going to throw one more in is stop comparing yourself to other people. I'll tell you that right now, because it's just time wasted. Every second you spend comparing yourself to another human is time that you could be spent working on yourself and bettering yourself. So that is what I always remind myself whenever I fall into that social media rabbit hole, and it helps me. So I hope it'll help someone else.
Yeah. And it's so hard not to do it. You know, it's
It's
just,
so hard, trust me. Like I said, I think I have to remind myself daily sometimes.
if you want to share your socials before you leave, you can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, my IG is storm_IFBB pro. That's really the only social media pretty much that I use. So just follow that one.
I really do appreciate you coming on. It was good to get to meet you and chat.
You as well. Thank you, Daniel.